Well, good morning and welcome again to our morning briefing presented by the Washington County Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jeff Catula, president of the Chamber. This morning, I'd like to thank our continuing sponsors of this series. We have Community Bank and Moody Associates. I'd like to thank them for their continuing support of our webinar series. I don't need to tell you that the COVID-19 emergency has presented its fair share of challenges in our community. However, it's also presented some new opportunities and new innovations as well. It's presented some great opportunities for partnerships. And this morning, we have two companies that are partnering together to work on the COVID-19 emergency together. Good morning. I'd like to welcome John Frazier III, COO of Frazier-Simplex. Good morning, John.
Morning.
And Andy Chan, CEO of Vigilant Technologies. Good morning to you both, gentlemen.
Good morning, Jeff.
Thanks for being with us this morning. And before we start, John, I'd like to congratulate you. I understand you're a new father. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we had our son, Leon. He'll be 3 months old on the 18th.
Well, I would say I appreciate you getting up this early to be with us, but you probably didn't get any sleep last night anyway, so we certainly appreciate you being with us this morning.
Don't worry, he got us all up promptly at 4:30.
Well, gentlemen, again, thank you for being with us this morning. I'd like to start talking about your both individual companies. And John, I'd like to start with you. Frazier-Simplex, of course, has been a great name in our business community in Washington County for many years. And if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of history of the company and what you guys are up to now.
Sure. Well, we are 103 years old now. And we are one of the oldest engineering consulting firms to the glass industry in America, founded by my great-grandfather when such an industry was booming and vibrant in the Washington and Pittsburgh areas. Nowadays, we are specializing in pharmaceutical glass tubing, which is quite timely in this current climate. And we also have a machine and fabrication shop that serves the business community, not just in glass, but mining, power, locomotive, really just about anything that people need, from structural steel, silos. I could name lots of cool stuff that happens in there every day. And we're constantly trying to find ways to not just persevere through times like these, but to innovate in times like these. And hence we met Andy here. I've known him about 4 years now, but he's invented some really cool new technology that we're going to be telling you guys about today.
Well, John, that's a great segue from one of the region's oldest companies to one of the region's newest companies, Vigilant Technologies. Andy, tell me a little bit about your company, when you started, and how you got into this business.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny because like in startup time, like 4 or 5 years is already like, wow, you're an old company, but nothing in comparison to the accolades of John's company. But yeah, so we're about like a 4-year-old startup based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Our company, Vigilant Technologies, is all about preventing workplace injuries and illnesses before they happen using predictive analytics and artificial intelligence. We came out of Carnegie Mellon as a spin-out company. Initially focused, we did research around helping athletes reduce injuries using, if you guys ever see the sports science, like the little balls on people's body where they're wearing, they're capturing the body mechanics. So we started off doing that as a service for athletes, like get back to the university center. But then we got approached by local regional companies like the Giant Eagles of the world. And we started providing ergonomic servicing to them as part of our safety platform to capture the risks that their employees were getting exposed to. And then that kind of helped us build this overarching safety platform, which one of them we just launched a COVID toolkit in response to a lot of the issues that our current clients are facing and new clients are facing regarding symptom tracking, temperature screening, contact tracing, and so forth, which I guess we'll get into in a bit as well.
Andy, we're always fascinated by new startup companies. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into this business.
Absolutely. So My own background, I was an electrical and computer engineer at Carnegie Mellon University. I was on the football team where that's how I met my co-founder, who also happened to be in the same major, but he was 1 year above me. I was a freshman at the time. He was a sophomore. And then we're playing around with different startup ideas. And then we both started doing research around wearable devices and doing these sports injury reduction labs. And that's really where our passion for health and technology started together. And so we looked at each other. We're like, we should definitely like work on something together, um, out of like outside the research scope.
And you're currently located in Pittsburgh, near Shadyside, correct?
Correct. Yes. So our offices are just a stone throw away from Carnegie Mellon still. So technically, officially, our offices are still owned by Carnegie Mellon property. So we're just kind of in one of this co-working spaces that CME operates out of. So it's nice. We still got heavy ties back to the university.
And that was my next question. What is your interaction with the university? What type of support do they provide you? I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities for workforce development, technology development, things of that nature. How important is that relationship to you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the brand name, it's a fantastic brand name regionally, but more critical too. If anyone on this call is a Carnegie Mellon alum, like you actually get free resources from them for helping you start an entrepreneurial endeavor. So, like for example, our office, like our renting space is free. They give you, like when we first started, they gave us resources of like legal advice, product development advice, business development advice, and this is all free in terms of monetary amount and equity. They don't take any equity, so it's a really good deal that I think while I was there, not a lot of Carnegie Mellon people even knew of really, but it's a great perk to take advantage of if you are interested in doing entrepreneurship.
That's a unique concept they have to help you guys out with that.
Yeah. So I hear the whisperings that one day they might start charging the startups in the space, like, rent and stuff like that. But thankfully, we were in the era where things are still free and inflation hadn't hit us that hard.
Well, keep it up as long as you can. Make sure that lease is nice and tight for you guys there, right?
Yep, exactly.
And Andy, you mentioned, of course, a lot of innovation. You're a new company, new startup. And John, I wouldn't mind turning attention to you for a second. You're over 100-year-old company. You're the fourth generation to manage the company and own it and driving it forward. What have you done in terms of innovation to keep the company moving forward in a great direction during this climate?
That's a great question. It's been all about finding where the greatest need is. And for us, it really was kind of fate where our specialty was pharmaceutical glass tubing anyway. But now the demand for that has exploded on a global scale. I think we've received more requests for proposals this year than in the past several years combined. So I think we're really going to see a huge demand in that space to produce the type of glass that will really be necessary for when we've got to come up with 7 billion vaccines really fast.
Mm-hmm.
and then it's also I'm constantly trying to find and explore new opportunities for collaboration, because there is a lot of value in the experience a company this old can bring in partnering with a company that's relatively quite young, and also really trying to expand our international focus of the company. Since I've come on, we've been doing a lot more business in China, South Korea, Mexico, just as the glass industry has truly become global, and we're also trying to do that on our equipment fabrication side as well. A lot of people wouldn't guess that a big red building on the top of a hill in Washington is exporting to the other side of the planet. So it's been very interesting to try to expand markets, to innovate and find the right partners in an ever-changing climate.
Now, how have you seen, I mean, you're a very well-known local company here in Washington, but you have an increasing international presence. How have you seen that shift just during your tenure as COO?
That's a good question. It's been very interesting as the rest of the world looks for higher quality. I've noticed a trend which we not only have, but there is great. Um, I'm looking for the right word here, other than value. I've said value a bunch of times already, but I think you get the idea. In being as old as we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that carries real weight when, there's a few companies that age in America. There's old companies in Europe, but in a lot of the world, that's a very unusual thing. So kind of telling people that we are out of this age, it really carries a great weight and helps with a great legitimacy as places look for higher quality work for their own domestic products.
Well, here's the question then. We have a 104-year-old company based in Washington, a brand new company based in Pittsburgh. How did you guys get together, and tell me about what you're doing together?
Yeah, well, I first met Andy when he came upstairs to look for free snacks. We were in Alpha Lab. So before this, I had a startup called You Translated, and Pittsburgh has a startup accelerator called Alpha Lab. I was in the software division, and Andy was in the hardware division.
Yes, the good times. We were I think we really just met just snacking about, because they have these like little kitchen areas. And then, like John mentioned, the upstairs was primarily for heavy software focused companies. And then the downstairs portion was for any companies that had anything hardware related. And we had this wearable device that it's like a Fitbit for your back. And that's what we use to track the ergonomic data or extract it. And we were just, I was just crossing floors just to get a breath of fresh air from the office. And then there John was always a friendly guy. So that, yeah, we're just like, I don't know, getting sparkling water and eating snacks in the office.
So more by happenstance, really, than anything.
Yeah.
Well, then tell me then, during the situation currently with COVID and how you guys are working, together. Tell me a little bit about the innovations that you guys are working together with.
Yeah, so I know when this happened, while our business is considered essential, we still shut down for a couple of weeks to reevaluate all of our safety, and figure out how we can make this as good an environment as possible during this crisis. And I saw a press release for Andy's new technology, and I wanted to implement it at our manufacturing right away. But we've also partnered to implement it in all of our construction sites. And well, of course, we should probably say what it is. Andy, you want to take it from there?
Sure thing. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we found, like I mentioned, we first did the ergonomic side, but then a lot of our current clients were like, well, what's happening right now with the COVID situation? Like, how can we be on top of it and, not take too much time away from our employees to do screening? So one of the two things that we noticed a lot was a lot of states were mandating that workplaces have symptom screening as well as temperature screening prior to entering the workplace. And a lot of people were, one, unaware of this, and then two, if they were aware of it, they were doing a lot of things the old-fashioned way, as I would call it, either by just an honor system of just like, hey, read these things, and then so anyone that walks in the door, you acknowledged it, or they are taking track of it, but it's like very paper pen. Their symptoms are doing paper pen, and then there is actually an employee on standby or a third-party administrator that will do the temperature reading. But then the issue there is that one person doing the temperature reading is constantly exposed to all incoming people, and that in itself is a liability. So we really looked at this and we're like, all right, how do we automate this portion? Like, how do people don't, like, management doesn't need to worry about it. Workers also don't need to worry about it. And so we have this system where, based on your employee roster on your HR side, we will send a link to all your employees every 24 hours for a symptom check that you need to pass prior to coming in the door. So it's like a green check mark if you pass it. And then afterwards, we have a tablet kiosk system that does contactless temperature screening. So you basically walk up to this tablet, you put your face, not put your face, but like you just show your face to the tablet, and then it'll read off your temperature if you're cleared or not. So therefore, yeah.
So what would your average employee, coming into work in the morning, what would they experience?
So no app downloaded. They would just get a link either through text message or email. They would fill it out either at home or on the way to the office or at the office. And then they would show their phone to the front desk person or whoever their manager is to say, hey, I'm checked off. And then you would go and then take your temperature reading.
So it's totally touchless then. It's
correct.
Okay. And then John, how do you use that in your own workplace?
Yeah, so we're kind of using it in two different ways, where we have it at our manufacturing site, our machine shop, for everyday use, where people will receive it in the morning, just walk up in the morning right where everybody checks in, scans, and you are clear for work. If not, I or another one of our managers will receive an alert that says, hey, X has an elevated temperature. You can tell them to go home, keep an eye on it, maybe get tested. And the nice thing is that on my end, we can see as an administrator, everybody's reading every day, make sure they're all cleared. And you can think, it's like, okay, this person had an elevated temperature. Who worked with them yesterday?
Okay.
All those people go home as well. Thankfully, that hasn't happened yet, but it's a nice thing to have for us. And then for our construction end, we're using it for all of our subcontractors as well on the job site, because we're not only responsible for the safety of our people, but in that case, we can't be bringing in this virus to an entire plant that we're working.
So it's totally touchless. And I am sure there is a component that you're keeping records, of course, and it also does contract tracing if in the unfortunate event that someone may have contracted the virus.
Yeah, it's been great because it's really every piece of the puzzle all in one system.
That's interesting. And Andy, I understand there's a component of artificial intelligence that goes into this as well.
Yeah, so there's a couple of layers of it. The first one is really on the tablet side. So they did a large study research on nursing population where for the thermal cameras, the eye duct area is actually the most accurate temperature reading than the forehead. So we do some artificial intelligence to do the contours of the face and then find where the eyes are to take the reading. And then the second part of the AI is something that we're actually working with primarily self-insured employers or the health plan, like UPMC health plan with. And this is the portion where they're looking to use the data itself, like from our data and other pieces of data, to do predictive analytics around where are your risky populations so that you can proactively try to address that, make sure that their health needs are met before they even get an illness.
I'd like to remind our viewers we're talking with Andy Chan from Vigilant Technologies and John Frazier from FrazierSimplex. And if they'd like to ask the gentleman any questions, please go to the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A, and then we can ask some questions as well. We have a few already coming in. I just want to remind our participants of that. Gentlemen, going back to this technology, what have you seen has been working in the field and also not working in the field in terms of actual implementation?
Yeah. John, do you want me to take that one, or?
Please.
Yeah, so something that at least when we were coming about, like the whole reason this came forth was the whole issue of like people were asking like the liability concerns they had regarding the person doing the screening that was being exposed to everyone. And then I think the classic thing of like people were trying to manage this with just classic paper and pen or doing an Excel spreadsheet. And then someone's like, I don't want to do this all day. So I think from an implementation standpoint, those were some of the roadblocks that people had. We're like, like this is such a pain in the ass. Like I don't want to do this thing. And so therefore we're like, okay, well, I think this is a perfect time for software to come and like just take this portion away from people's day. And so that was one of the things that we had seen a lot. where people are like, I don't want to do this, but at the same time, I do want to protect our employees. And so I think that's kind of that little area that we try to push in terms of solving an issue.
Okay.
And I can even attest to that, because both myself and any other, it doesn't even have to be a manufacturer, any other business leader I talk to, everybody shares that anxiety over telling one of their own employees to hold a temperature gun in the morning.
Yeah.
And because someone has to do it, maybe it's you yourself, but like no matter who is, it's like that person is putting themselves at risk. And so having this eliminate that part of the equation brings so much peace of mind.
And there was this, excuse me, and there was this like point in the product development cycle where we were wondering, like, because like Microsoft's of the world and other people are coming out with these apps that people download, right, to do contact tracing and stuff like that. And we had considered, like, do we do the app download? But talking to a lot of clients, you know, it needed to be something that's very lightweight application in terms of things that like people didn't need to download things, or like you could do it on your computer as well in addition to your phone. So that talking through those process became a big part of what the product ended up becoming, to be this, like I said, lightweight application.
Yeah, we're getting actually a lot of great questions, and gentlemen, mind if we take a few of them for you?
Sure.
The first one is that the data information stored, is the data and information that you guys are receiving stored somewhere? And is it made available to the companies and or the employees? And what would give the overall idea? And basically they're looking for the overall idea or concept of what's the overall health of people in the actual workplace.
Great question. So I think I see it was like from Lauren. So Lauren, good question. But all of our systems are cloud infrastructure. So we use Amazon Web Services, where we encrypt and store the data on the cloud, and that is readily available for all employers to access from a dashboard. So very much kind of like a Facebook style web application where you have your own login. You don't need to download anything either. You just go to a URL link, plug in your credentials, and then if you are an administrator, an admin, then you can see the data for basically all your job sites, all your groups, and everyone who has checked in, and then their results for the day. You can also anonymize data to do more aggregate reporting, but that's more of a reporting type thing.
Okay. We have a good question from Jennifer too. If the employee has an elevated temperature at the kiosk, how do you prevent them from walking into work before they are notified? In other words, do you receive instant notification before they're coming in?
Yes.
Yeah, so to what John said, there's a portion of the web application where you can set up manager roles. So basically each location can have designated managers or facility managers. So anytime someone fails any screening that's temperature or symptom, that manager will get pinged to say like, hey, this person at this time at this location failed. But at the same time, there is a possibility of integrating the back end of our system into your card access system. So essentially, if someone does fail, you could revoke their card access for like 24 hours.
Okay.
But that requires a little more of the integration piece on the back end.
Okay. We have a really interesting question from Harlan Schober. As many of you know, going back to school this year is going to be presenting a challenge. A lot of parents are wondering how their children are going to go back to school during pandemic. And his question is, could this technology be used to getting students back to school? Can it be implemented in our school districts? I mean, it seems like a good fit for something along that line.
It's an excellent question. Yeah. So I've been personally talking to a couple of the universities around this region. And then I think, John, you've also been getting reached out to with some of those public school districts, correct?
Yeah. We've received a lot of inquiries from, just top down educators, even our local politicians, superintendents, professors at universities, because a lot of people have been asking, can this be used for this? And, we are trialing it, but I believe the answer would be yes, in terms of getting this in to help for a safe reopening. I wouldn't say it's the only thing you need, of course, but this is a great piece of the puzzle to help prevent anyone who has symptoms, has an elevated temperature, from coming to school. You could tell them, okay, you can go home, or you know, you can notify their parents, and that's really part of it's really part of the appeal from not just a business standpoint, you know, putting it in your factory, putting it in your office, but what this technology can do is really provide great peace of mind when trying to reopen, especially as the trend we see is that people want, you know, it's all trending towards reopening because we just sort of have to, we may just have to swallow it and do it. So this could be a real key here, which is part of why I'm, you know, while I'm a customer, also shouting from the rooftops, hey guys, this is an incredible piece of technology, and this could really help not just the region, but like the whole country get back to work or get back to school.
I think it really makes sense when you look at school districts because, you know, every student pretty much has a phone. But I want to turn your attention to another question that came in concerning employees that perhaps may not have a smartphone. How would it work in that regard?
It's a good question. So when you get the link, assuming you know they have an email, then you would get the link through your email, and you could fill it out at your home, assuming they have a computer, and then therefore you can get logged into the system if you cleared symptom screening or not. Because if you don't clear it, you get this big X mark and said like, "Hey, please don't come into work. Stay at home. Contact your manager, or your manager will contact you." And then when you come to do your temperature screening, then at that point, if you really don't have a phone, then you might need to do a physical touching of the tablet to enter like my username. Like I'm Andy Chan, so like A Chan, and then I take my temperature reading, so it knows like who I am.
Is there a typical profile of a company or a manufacturer that is using this? I mean, is there, you know, one company that you see that's doing a great job at using this? Of course, outside of Frazier-Simplex. But what other companies are using it, and how well has it been received?
Yeah, I was just about to say like John's company for sure. But yeah, the other companies, it does range. Like a lot of it's like, you know, John's a classic example of like a small to mid-sized business. But then we've also been working with really large enterprises like like Sheets, for example, which is like I think they did like $7 billion last year. And then like insurers as well that have 13,000 to 1 million lives that they insure. So it's really kind of it's a big spectrum. You know, we're servicing people that I think we have one Colorado firm that has like 15 employees under. It's a very tiny firm
Okay.
versus like a health plan that has 1 million lives that we're creating infrastructure for.
And John, have you seen interest by you implementing it at job sites, other employees, manufacturers, you know, interested in the technology?
Yeah, absolutely. Because whenever we're bidding work, because we're going to be coming in, we say, hey, you know, we've got this technology. A lot of those meetings end with our customer saying, hey, could you help us put this in our plant, in our factory, our office? And I mean, absolutely. It's an amazing and also intimidating thing where realistically every business in America needs this right
Mm-hmm.
now. So the possibilities are endless, and it scales thanks to the automation.
Now, I do have one final question that came in, and this is the one I'm sure you guys want to hear. How do I go about learning more about this great technology to instill in my company?
Yeah, I say like the primary source would probably be me. You use my email. It's I guess you guys could pass it out, or I could type
Yeah,
it to you,
well,
but
yeah,
it's
we'll
my
make sure we
name.
pass it out.
Yeah, like Andy.Chan at, and then it's VIT, like Vigilant, VIT initiative.com.
Good.
Or you can contact John too if you guys already have John's info, and then John will probably pass it on to me as well.
Yeah. If I'm happy to be a referral. Absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, it is 8:30. We certainly appreciate your time, and we appreciate all our participants this morning on the webinar. I'd like to thank you both for being so innovative. You know, a lot of times when we have challenges like this in our country, the great thing is how innovative companies become and working together and forming new partnerships. So John Frazier from Frazier-Simplex, Andy Chan from Vigilant Technologies, I'd like to thank you both for being with us and taking the time to be with us this morning on our morning briefing webinar. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, guys. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Yeah, thanks.
And Andy, as you grow, please consider Washington County to locate in. We'd be glad to have you down here. We'll put you right next to John's building.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and here, just real quick in the chat, I'll post Andy's email and my own email.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, thanks, John.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I'd also like to thank Community Bank and Moody & Associates for sponsoring this morning's morning briefing. I'd like to remind you that our next morning briefing will be on July 29th, when we'll revisit with Crown Castle. As you know, we hosted them a few weeks ago to talk about 5G and the implementation of the 5G network across our country. We had a lot of positive response. We wanted to get a little bit more in depth with this company that's doing a lot of great things to help improve our communications technology in southwestern Pennsylvania and in the United States. So we hope you join us on July 29th. Thank you very much for being with us this morning, and have a great day.